Frank Portinari, I think I said that right. So I am in Camden, St Pancras International Station. We were supposed to do this a couple of weeks back. Anyway, I'm here, and you're going to be showing me basically a few bits of your tour, not too much, because obviously you run a hectic schedule tour. You give out a lot of, information, which is, I suppose, I dare say, only someone who lives here would probably know. Do you know what I mean? You're kind of patriotic North London boy. How many? What's the plan? Are you going to go to a few and show me? And
yeah, we'll start off obviously outside of St Pancras Station, in an area which is St Pancras.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about that building there a minute ago. Obviously, a really haunted one. What's it called?
Well, it is still part of St Pancras Station. It's just the fact that is a hotel.
Right.
That's a very lucrative and expensive hotel. You can still, there's a bar downstairs type restaurant. It's still very much part of the station.
It's supposed to be really haunted as well, isn't it?
So they say.
Spice Girls filmed in there.
Yeah, they filmed on the steps. You get a lot of tourists go there
just
to have their photo done in exactly the same pose. Here we've got the British Library, the red brick building there is the British Library, and there's so much information in there. And then to the back you've got the Francis Crick Institute, which is known for its science, and Francis Crick was basically.
So it's changing really, this area, isn't it? Everything's getting bigger.
Completely. As we walk through, you'll see the old working class side of it, as opposed to the gentrification, or certainly the modernisation, I would say. Right.
So yeah, let's go along.
Let's go to a couple of sites where we've got some stories. I mean, a lot of people know that Pancras Station was named after Pancras, who in turn became a saint. He was beheaded, taken back. He was only 14. He was in the Roman army. He was taken back to Rome. He wouldn't renounce his Christianity, and consequently he was beheaded.
Wow.
And that's what gave his name to this area, and in turn the station itself.
Right, let's get going.
Okay.
So Frank, why have you brought me here? What's the significance of it?
Well, we're at a point here where there's a memorial. It's only been put here quite recently. Before that, there was a bit of a bench, and there was a banner commemorating young Richard, who was 15. And the story behind
this is 30 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the anniversary this year in August. And basically, Richard was a very quiet boy, quiet young man. He went
to
local school. I knew his brother. I knew his parents. I used to go to the same school, but many years before that.
Yeah.
Richard was passing here with two friends. They'd been playing football, and he was known as a gentle giant.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there'd been a lot of racial tension in the area, and in the school, between Asian gangs, black gangs, and white gangs, and so on. A serious lot of violence. And during the course of that day, apparently a white boy had robbed an Asian boy. A gang of up to 15 Asian boys, in fact they were Bangladeshi to be precise, went looking basically for this fella. But it got to the stage where any white boy would do. They came across the three young fellas. Two of them ran. Unfortunately for Richard, he got caught and he was stabbed.
So he never done nothing really as well?
No. He was stabbed with a kitchen knife.
So that's very similar to the Stephen Lawrence case, isn't it?
I suppose you could make the correlation there. Yeah, you could make the correlation. And what happened then was 11 of the people that were given, of the 15, 11 of them disappeared. They left the country, and only 3 people. One was given a sentence, a long sentence. One was acquitted. One was given youth custody. But the repercussions around here were terrible. An Asian butcher's got burnt out. By the same token, another Asian businessman gave £1,000 reward.
Are they still on the run as well, 30 years on?
Yeah, they've never been
incredible.
Found. No, they've never been found. What happened then, unfortunately, the Camden Council were very, very supportive of the Asian families, and not at all supportive of the family of Richard. And in the end, they come under so much pressure, they actually had to move. And at the time, the Labour MP, Frank Dobson, wouldn't even acknowledge that there was a racist element to it, despite the fact that the boy that did it actually boasted to other people later that evening. Basically, I've stabbed a white boy. Now it can be talked about because there's not
30
the
years
same,
on.
yeah, there's not so much sensitivity. At the time, you couldn't. His family, Richard's family, eventually moved out to Essex. Then they moved up north, but it's always left, unfortunately, a very bad taste around it. And it went on. It went on for a long, long time. And I suppose involved into what we now know as, postcode wars between younger people. But this was the early signs of that. Yeah, so that's unfortunately the very sad story of Richard Everett. Yeah.
Right, Frank, so you brought me here. Funny enough, I was actually sat here a couple of hours ago by myself. What's the significance of this place then, St Pancras Old Church?
Well, it's said to be the oldest place of worship in Europe.
Really?
Some people say it was here from the 9th century, some say the 10th. It's had different reincarnations over the years. During the time of Cromwell, he actually billeted 50 men and horses after ransacking the church. He actually billeted 50 men because Parliament Hill's not that far away, so he used to go to the top of Parliament Hill and he could see Parliament. So he slowly made his way towards there. There is a strange story in the sense that there were 3 sites that were named after St Pancras. This one in Lewes, in Sussex, and one somewhere in Europe. When I visited the St Pancras site in Lewes, Thomas Cromwell was instructed by Henry VIII to start demolishing various places of worship, and somebody was called from London, an Italian engineer, and 13 apprentices were to come and demolish it, and his name was Giovanni Portinari.
Really?
Just by chance, we just happened to share the same, and that was in the 1500s.
I mean, this park, what's it like? Is it rough on a night, or is it pretty classy? It looks all right.
It can be. Originally it was a cemetery.
Yeah. What was it?
Yeah, it was a cemetery, and I'll show you a couple of more prominent sites.
So I dare say it'll maybe be a little bit haunted.
I would imagine so. This was extended all the way back over towards King's Cross,
and
they badly needed more land to build railways on, to service King's Cross and to service.
So King's Cross, is it all that kind of red light? Is that mythical now? Because obviously it was
gone now.
Is that gone?
That's gone. Yeah.
Right.
If you're in a restaurant round there now and the waiter offers you, some tart, it's not that tart anymore. It's a completely different.
Really?
It's a completely different tart. Yeah. This was completely a cemetery, and eventually they say they took the railway land, and they needed this space, and they didn't know what to do with the gravestones. And if we walk just up here, we will see where it's fenced off now. Last year, a tree that's been standing there for many, many years, called the Hardy tree, and that was named after Thomas Hardy, who wrote novels, Far from the Madding Crowd, and what was the other one? Tess of the D'Urbervilles, which were both made into films. And at the time, he was only a young man, and he was given the job by the architects that he worked for to do something with the stones. And if we walk over here, this is what he did with the old tombstone. In the centre was the tree, the Hardy tree. And you can just about make out now because it's all starting to overgrow. Can you see the stones?
Yeah.
And what he did, he placed all the stones around the tree.
Yeah.
And that's why they called it the Hard.
And how old will that be then?
Oh, God knows.
1,000 years?
The tree? No, I don't know if anyone actually knows how old the tree is. I don't know if anybody knows that, but there was a storm last year. they do come up, and if that's the start of growing something, or they're going to insert one in somewhere, that's it there. Look, that's the old tree. That's what's left of it laying there.
So,
there a little bit, we'll go out
yeah.
and get away from the main traffic, isn't it?
So this building here looks incredibly old. What's the story behind this place?
This is currently St Pancras Hospital.
Uh-huh.
Many, many years ago, this was St Pancras Workhouse.
So you're talking like Victorian times, like...
Yep. And somebody that was alleged to have been born in there, because again, you have to take into account there is a lot of history in Camden, St Pancras where we are now, but also a lot of folklore as well. So it's an issue at the moment that some people are claiming he was born in Charlton Street, in Somers Town, just over there.
Uh-huh.
Others are saying that he was born here. He eventually, because of basically became an orphan, and he was a rat catcher, and he worked for the municipal council as a road sweeper. What set him apart was eventually he became a Burley King. In fact, he was the king of the Burley Kings. And originally, he died. Well, he died in the same building by that time.
Really?
Yeah, it was a hospital. It had become a hospital. So originally a workhouse, and then it became a hospital. He was buried in here, and it was the equivalent of a royal wedding of its time.
I mean, that's quite, if that's true, obviously being born somewhere and dying in the same place. I've never heard that before.
If you go on Pathé News, there are two videos of the funeral.
Right.
And he had a statue, and it was only about that high. And eventually, because it was starting to get damaged, they moved it, and you can now go and see it in the crypt of St Martin's in the Fields, Trafalgar Square. Right. There's a part of it actually called the crypt, and you can go downstairs and you can see the actual statue.
So we are in College Grove, northwest London.
Yep, and this is Royal College Street, and we're now kind of going between Somers Town into Camden Town. Because just across there is Camden High Street, and we'll be visiting there shortly. In this street at the top of the road, there is a pub that used to be called the Eagle. Now, a lady called Emily Dimmock was last seen alive in that particular pub. Now, she was what we call a brass, and I explain to people, people always say, what's a brass? I say it's Cockney for brass, flute, etc. But, you know, I make the point of saying that ladies are the night sex workers, everything. She had a partner who was working late. She'd been seeing a man who was an artist and basically a client. When her partner returned home, he found her on the bed, dead with her throat cut. Now,
what year are we talking here?
You want to have a look at this? Let's make sure we get our facts right. So Emily would have been, for some reason I haven't got that written down. But I want to make sure we get our information, because I know I've definitely got it. I've definitely got it on here. But what lies behind this is the fact that she, or a person who I know you've got an interest in, also did a painting. Yeah. And he painted a woman on a bed with her throat cut. And the police knew that she, that he had a very macabre, very macabre interest, and in death, basically. And I'm sure to find it here. Hold on a minute. Here we go. I don't believe it. I still haven't got the date written down. I apologise.
So it'll be the 1800s or one or the 19s.
It was towards the end. I mean, what I've done is I've eradicated a lot of notes because I'm in fact writing a book. I am writing a book now about the dark side of Camden, and I have drastically changed I've updated a lot of the information, and rather than rush to the next story, I'm being particularly careful, because information like you've just I've not got that. Sorry, I apologise for that. But the man concerned was part of the Camden Town group of artists, and he was Walter Sickert.
Yeah.
As you know, was one of the suspects in the Jack the Ripper
So
murders.
Patricia Cornwell, she has spent millions of her own money. She will not hear about any other, your Kosminskis and all. She is convinced that it was Walter Sickert. Do we get to see his house?
Yeah, we're going to go there. Yeah,
right.
We're going to cross.
So November 2003. Go on.
Well, the significance of the site we're at the moment was in these flats. The police were called. Yep, the police were called to an address where a man had been quite threatening to a neighbour. In fact, he'd done some damage to a door. And he was called Anthony Hardy.
Right.
And
so is this where he lived?
Yeah, in the flats. The flat's never been let, as far as I'm concerned, after that.
What, in 20 years?
Yeah, I'm sure they never left it. I don't think anybody wanted to live there. And I shall qualify that, but that's always what's been people have always said. My daughter used to work in the veterinary college across the road, and she remembers when the tent was all set up there for the forensics eventually. So they enter the house. They knew him to be a very volatile man. They knew he had psychiatric problems. He liked drugs. He liked his drink, and was known to frequent King's Cross quite a lot, and pick up women there. They entered his house. He looked like he was drunk at the time. And they got to a door and it was locked. And they asked for the key. He said he didn't have the key, or he couldn't find the key. Eventually, they found the key. They entered the room, and there was a naked woman dead on the bed. They called for there was obviously a doctor. There was a pathologist. In his notes, he said it was basically a heart attack that was probably resulted too much drugs, too much drink. He wasn't in any state to be questioned, Anthony Hardy, and he was basically taken off to a mental health institute for analysis, etc. He was eventually released, and he was allowed to come back to his original abode.
Wow.
On a particular day, someone would call a tramp, a down and out, someone down on his luck, was walking along here, and he started to go through the bins, looking for something to eat or anything of any value. When he opened the lid, there was two dismembered bodies, two women. So their arms had been removed, the legs had been removed.
And that was just here?
That was along here. These bins, these type of bins, these green bins. The police immediately put it down to Anthony Hardy and went looking for him. They couldn't find him. But what they did start to get was reports of body parts being found near canals, etc. They did eventually catch him, but again, because of his mental health. Anyway, basically, he got life sentences for the woman in the house as well. The pathologist was struck off. Yeah, he was struck off. But the press basically nicknamed him the Camden Ripper. That's what he was always.
So he was released to kill again.
Yeah, because there's a similar case where the railway rapists.
Yeah, John Duffy.
Right, it's a similar thing.
So are they Camden as well? North London, aren't they?
Yeah. It was all Hampstead Heath.
They're still inside, aren't they?
Yeah, they're still inside. And so they couldn't question him because he was in those. They say it could be anything up to 12, 15 other victims. They just can't attribute to him because they can't question him about that. What we're going to do now is we'll have a walk along here because we've covered Emily Dimmock, and it's kind of introduced us to the Walter Sickert story.
So we'll go to Camden High Street now, yeah?
Yeah, we'll go along. That's it at the end of the road. We're now standing outside the house of the gentleman we mentioned earlier, Walter Sickert.
This is quite surreal for me.
Yeah, I know you've got a big interest in this.
Obviously, I did a book on predominantly Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
And Patricia Cornwell is convinced that he was Jack. So he lived here for, my good God, a long time. What, 82 years, is that right? So he lived and worked here. So obviously that was the time he was alive. I don't think he'd have lived there. So obviously he died when he was 82.
Yeah.
And I mean, as I said, she is absolutely, she won't hear anything other than he was the man.
Well, he lived here. So say he lived here, and this is where what was known as the Camden Town group of artists. This is where they gathered, and they did a lot of their work. Yeah, I'm inclined to find it just a little bit too much of a coincidence that he did that painting.
Yeah.
He also did sketches as well.
Yeah. Oh, he was obsessed with the case and all that. He would have tried and inject himself into the case at times, and but yeah, wow, Walter Sickert lived here.
I'm glad you got to see that.
Yeah. Right, Frank Portleone. We've been around. I mean, listen, you could have took me miles more, and it is a lengthy tour. You know, you mix it up. You know, I'd quite like to see where Dennis Nielsen was job centre and all these different places. But we've kind of covered a few, which you do on your tour. Anyone who's obviously spent the time watching this, I'm going to put the links in the bio. So the Darkside at Camden, it's really taken off the tour. You know, people are the Soho tour, the Jack the Ripper tour, the Cray tour, all this. Camden's quite unique, and until the last year, I didn't realise how much actually is in the place.
You spoke to me in the past, and
I mocked it.
You actually put me on the spot, and you actually made me go out and do some research.
Right.
Because you kind of threw me, because you kind of mentioned Soho, you mentioned the East End, you said you've heard of South London gangs.
Yeah.
And you basically, so you didn't be talking to me, but you was basically saying, well, what's the big deal about Camden? And even I had to stop and think, well, hold on, I didn't exactly give you a decent account of Camden, and I'm a Camden boy, or certainly a St Pancras boy. And I was quite shocked.
Yeah.
I was quite shocked to find out that that Billy Hill was born in St Pancras, and synonymous around where we're sitting now, drank in various pubs in Camden.
It's much more deeper than your Amy Winehouse and all that. The normal things that people will know. Yeah. You know, Walter Sickert. We've just seen his house there. So you're well into your tours are flourishing. You've been quite busy last couple of weeks. I've saw you. And as I said, what we've kind of just covered there, we kind of touched on. You know, we'd have been there all night basically, but.
Can I stress Jamie has got an elasticated bandage?
Yeah,
I do not want to be responsible for making him lame.
Yeah, I'm old age, middle age has arrived, but no, do you know what, mate? It's captivating, riveting to listen to some of the things. And I told you the story last year. I accidentally walked 3 miles in the wrong part of the city and ended up in Camden. And I'm writing Junior Witter's book at the minute, and he always comes here. And until I was there last December, I never understood. And yeah, I mean, it's Summit. You know, it's more than Camden, isn't it? It's North London.
It's known. Camden Town particularly is clearly known for markets, street art, street food, music venues. You know,
it has a huge heritage with Afro-Caribbean and all that as well, doesn't it?
For that. That's why I try, without overloading it, I try to, as we did when we stopped on in the.
And of course, Madness and the punk bands and all this.
I try not to. If people have spent good money to come and hear about the dark side, I don't want to overload it with too much social history. If we had finished, for example, Hampstead Heath, where I normally finished, we'd have stood on one corner and we'd have talked about the railway rapists, who eventually became railway murderers. Horrific story. We'd have talked about the Magdala pub, which was where Ruth Ellis shot her lover, David Blakely, and she in turn was the
And I
last-
mean, we're in a pub now.
Yeah.
Was someone murdered outside of that?
They didn't get murdered. What it was, this pub that we're in now, that's called the Littleton Arms, used to be called the Southampton Arms. And just up the road is another pub called the Brighton, which was very much where the Camden Town mob of the day in the 20s. That was partly their headquarters. And they had come down here for a drink, and a couple of taxis pulled up, and it was basically the Savinis that turned up, and there was this long running feud with the racetracks and so on. And
I mean, that's 100 years. That's a century ago, isn't it?
And they basically were shot. Two of the Camden Town. In fact, the leader, Freddie Gilman, was shot, and he didn't die. Well, that was a big case in its day. A very, very big case. If you take into account further up the road which is the Sainsbury's now, was the ABC, the aerated bread company. Below there was where Alfie Solomon, Alfie Solomon,
Not the fictional character.
That's where his illegal distillery was. And it's not where people that are trying to make a living out of it say it was this side of it was Camden. It was actually the other side, it was Hawley Lock. Again, Hawley Lock is where what happened to the gun? What happened to the gun after George Cornell was shot?
So it was chucked in a lake, and it was dug out in. So they never found that, but they found the Jack the Hat chucked in a lake, and it was dug out in the 80s, and now it's in the Black Museum. A lot of people think it's the Cornell gun. It's not. That was never found.
So,
tell me then.
So there was a cat burglar, right, and who worked for the police.
Leslie Scott.
I think of his name, wasn't it? And
blonde guy.
They say he was forwarded the job of getting rid of the gun. And this is where I say you have to be careful when you're doing this sort of what is facts and what is fiction, what is folklore. Allegedly, he threw the gun in Hawley Lock.
Really? Was it ever found? It wasn't, was it?
No. But again, it's alleged, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you'll never know. Also, a gun that was used in a murder right on the which I described once to you, that's known as the man that committed suicide twice. The gun that was used in that case was found in the canal. Was found in the canal. But Camden is full of it's
it's lovely on the eye as well. The locks and that in the summer.
Yeah. Malcolm Fairley, the fox, picking Kemp's town, in Iceland Street. People, and we've not even touched this. There's been terrorism. There's been crimes of passion. Kemp's Town Road was once referred to as the Northern Mile. The street gang warfare around here was horrendous. We had 5 murders in one night to do with street gang, shootings and stabbings. It was really, really bad. As I say, we've touched on the Verizon robbery. You had Johnny Massey, who served nearly 43 years. He lived just up the road from me. I have a drink with him occasionally. We have a chap called Jimmy Brown.
Terry Ellis as well.
Yeah, Terry. We've done Terry. We've got Jimmy Brown. He got 18 years. He was doing a post office van. The bloke went to wall Jim. The gun went off. He didn't shoot. The gun went off. He still got 18 years. He landed up working with Noel Fielding. He became Noel Fielding's bodyguard. And one night they come out of a party. The police jumped on them for the drugs, and in the course of that struggle in Kemp's Town Road, Jimmy Brown, who they knew to have been a villain, so it was a double thing for them. He broke his leg, and he got a big claim out of it. And he's wrote the book since as well.
So, and you're obviously, you never stop learning.
No.
You're patriotic about your town, aren't you? Really, you're.
I am to the degree that I still refer to myself as St Pancras. Because, as I said, you had Holborn, back in the 60s you had Holborn, you had St Pancras, and you had Hampstead. Hampstead was clearly very affluent. And some genius decided to merge them all together. Now, I don't know if that was meant to make us all equal, but we still had an outside toilet that's in on and now in the yard. So I don't know how it improved our lives particularly. In fact, they tore all the houses down where we live, broke the community up, built these flats everywhere, and moved people in that we didn't know. So, yeah, I don't think that particular social experiment. All they had to do with the old houses was put central heating in and some decent sanitation. And those houses, there's still roads there now that are still standing. All they needed was a little bit of care, you know.
So, the tour, the Darkside of Camden, I've just been on it, and we've touched. There was loads that we could have just went on. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much for your time. As I said, anyone who wants to learn more and speak to Frank, very approachable. I'm going to put all the links in his bio. You're on Instagram, you're on Twitter, you're on YouTube.
I'm not currently on YouTube. I'm on Facebook.
Facebook.
There is a specific page for.
Yeah. So it's a group. It's a group, that isn't it? Yeah. So I'm going to put the Darkside of Camden group in the bio. Frank, always a pleasure, mate.
Can I just add one thing?
Go on, of course.
Thanks very much, Jamie, coming down. You entertained me a few weeks back as well. I very much appreciate that, as I do anybody I sit and have a conversation with.
So you've got something coming up, haven't you?
Yes. What I've decided to do as well is I can appreciate this time of year. It's getting cold. It's getting wet. Some people love that. Not everybody does. I had an offer to do a talk inside. It's on Monday, the 11th of November.
Yeah.
And it's at the Bagel Beer House, King's Cross. You can get tickets on Eventbrite, and it should be a very good evening. I'm very much looking forward to it. And obviously, what I'm attempting to do is attract a more corporate audience as well. So if people want to entertain their workmates, their staff, their clients, etc., and they want food provided and so on, that's something I can do with the management. So yeah, something new, something a little bit different. But I still prefer to do the actual walking tour itself.
Yeah. So send me that link. So when I put this video out on Saturday, as I said, anyone who fancies going along to that to listen to Frank, click in the bio and. Do you know what? After Christmas, I'll probably be back down as soon as the light nights, and I'd love to do another, Dennis Nielsen's Job Centre and all this, and it can go on and on and on. Do you know what I mean? There is that much in. I had my eyes open with Camden in the last year. As I said, Alex Reid, it was always, he'd ring me and it'd be in Camden. I think, why are you always in Camden? And then obviously I found out. Do you know what I mean? So
I actually, if I'm honest, because I'm from Kentish Town tradition, we have to say we have three towns: Somers Town, Camden Town, and Kentish Town. But they were all the borough. They all formed the borough of St Pancras. I pretty much take for granted. If I was in another country and had what's on offer, I'd probably appreciate it far more.
Yeah.
Because it's just down the road from me. You're kind of like, it's no big deal.
Yeah. I grew up in Middlesbrough, nearly 300 mile away, and there is people that are interested, in the Peaky Blinders, obviously that story. But always a pleasure, Frank. And as I said, get in the bio and click on the links. And thank you so much for your time, mate.
No, thank you. It's been good. I'm enjoying spending some time with you.